just like that. It's 10:10. It kind of snuck up on me, I'm not gonna lie. I was in the middle of working, breaking, working, going back, but I have to do my best to join you every Wednesday, no matter how crazy the world gets, because it's no man's land, and this is my weekly dump, kind of, as bad as that sounds, right? To be able to share with you the news, to be able to have gone from YouTube. We started this last year. It was an extension of Mysteries of the Mind and all of those state of mind political podcasts that I've been able to do throughout the years. But YouTube, as you guys know, throughout the space in the last few years has become quite scary, quite different, quite hard to walk around and explore. So with censorship and things like that, things were kind of banned and shut down. So it became very difficult for me to keep that show going. And luckily, Odyssey Radio was able to pick me up. Hey, it was like Hitchhiker's Guide. And they saw a need and a want. And I'm really, really appreciative. And so you guys be sure and check that out. Odyssey Radio, you can check it out on any app that you might use to listen to your favorite podcast. You can download and stream live. You can join me and you can download the weekly show. And it's weekly from here on out. My goal is to keep it at 10:10 every Wednesday. Middle of the week, middle of the ground, middle of the way. And for those of you joining us live in the chat, whether it's on YouTube or Instagram or on Facebook, hi, Mary. Hi, Jonathan. Hi, Matt. Hi, all of you. Thank you so much for supporting me, continuing to follow me throughout. And I will be sure and share this more and more on social media as we grow together. A bunch of you had shared things on social media that you wanted to talk about. Man, there is just so much going on in the realm, right? I don't know how you're coping, how you're managing that space, how you're walking around and maneuvering it, because it is, well, it once was sacred and now not so much. But it seems like we want it to be, and we are approaching a full moon in Virgo. That means all sorts of things. It really does. That means all sorts of things. And one of the things that it does mean is that we're feeling a pull, a gravitational, like, I can't even help it. That is a big life change, a big life transformation. And this is going to be happening for everybody in a micro way, but also everybody in a macro way. And that, I kind of feel like, what is it going to be for you? Do you know? You should know. You probably know. As I'm saying it right now, you've got something popping into your mind that's like, oh, yeah, big life change, big career change. For some people, it's divorce. For some people, it's getting over cancer. Um, what is it for you? For me, I know what it is. But yeah, it's crazy to see it affecting everyone. And now we've got headlines of Ukrainian issues. If you join me on my astrology and alchemy show on Tuesday nights, you already kind of have an idea of how to use that energy, of what we expect to happen. We've been doing predictions. We've been looking at how the universe is kind of setting things up. And indeed, it is. So one of the things that I want to talk about, I don't know if this is affecting you guys lately. Um, how has it been for you in your school systems? And let's just kind of start local. So I'm in Minnesota. We've had a lot of teachers on strike. Now the strike was planned for a while. It's not like it just happened, but I feel like over probably the past year that it was planned, and now that it's kind of continued, they've added things that they want to, be concerned about and rally about and protest about. But it also leaves, for me, someone working in social services, a lot of vacancies, a lot of holes, a lot of like, oh my goodness, this is happening. And now we don't have teachers in the classrooms, and parents are already stressed, and the economy is already very stressed. And so now where are the kids going to go? And there's a lot of domestic situations. But there's just so many things in the news. And for me, it's been a lot of managing community protest. It's been a lot of like, what are people doing, and do they realize the effect that it has on their neighbors? Are people in tune at all? Do they care at all? Sometimes I don't feel like they do. And I think that is probably the way of the movement. That's what it's supposed to make you feel like. It's supposed to make you feel like you don't care. And a lot of people have grown quite apathetic. We are literally watching millions of people run for their lives. And how are we supposed to feel about that when well, I guess if you're in Alaska, you're only 54 miles away from some of the action, right? It's that close. It feels so far, and it is far, but it's not that far. And things are going to greatly start affecting us very soon here in America. Where are you joining us from? Let me know in the chat room. I've got someone sharing that they're from Australia. That alone is whoa. Talk about news. Um, a lot of stuff going on in Australia. I wouldn't even know where to begin with that. A lot of indigenous genocide, a lot of lockdowns, a lot of craziness going on as far as mandates go, control, authority. Ruth says, "Hey, from New Jersey." Man, New Jersey, that's fun. I've not actually personally been to New Jersey. I feel like I've had a lot of remote traveling, or I have gone there in my mind, or I've been to conferences in New Jersey that were online or on a Zoom, but I've never actually stopped and enjoyed New Jersey. So let's just cover it, guys. Unless there's something specific that you want to cover, I'm going to look at some of the news going on right now that I feel like. Well, first of all, let's kind of. I know that usually I save my conspiracies for last, and I'll save some of my cyber psychology and forensic psychology topics for last too. But um, one thing in the news: how do you feel about American veterans getting crash courses in combat and going over there to Ukraine and giving crash courses in combat to Ukrainian volunteers, sending our troops over there to kind of help flash train people that are left? And really, it's men, right? Because women and children are allowed to leave, men are asked to stay. So we aren't necessarily willing as a country because of some sticky fine print, let's face it, right? NATO and some of the old school things are happening that you don't want to really activate or touch on, because then it gets everybody at the lunch table involved. So in trying to keep things small, which man, you kind of want to do that, right? This you can't have our jets, or you can't do that. I feel like people should stop and go watch Lord of War with Nicolas Cage, and rarely do I ever look at me. I'm not always out there recommended Nicolas Cage. No offense, Nicholas, if you're watching. You're a little weird. You're kind of crazy. And so not watch Nicholas though, because he's in some of those movies where it's telling you something. But anyway, I feel like if you've not seen Lord of War, maybe you're a Jared Leto fan, maybe that'll get you to watch it. That movie teaches people a lot just about real life. Politics, war, how things go. Um, how things go. And if you're not familiar with how things go, that would be a good movie to see. Even though it's a Hollywood version, obviously, it's not like ding, 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 real life, but it's going to give you an indication of kind of maybe perspectives you haven't considered on how war really works. It generates money, 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 money. Mm-mm. And it seems like overnight, right? Pepper, hi, Brad, Mary Beth, vanished. I mean, not so much in China right now. They're on another big lockdown, which people, are going to say this is their way of micromanaging the resources to America. That who's to say, what's to say, because they are so rigid in the information that they keep and share, that it might look like, and I'm just winking as I say this, and it might very well be and is a pandemic continued over there in China, but that it also just really funnels American resources and money and trade. And as we sanction over here and boycott over there, and then someone goes, oh, yeah, and by the way, if you cut them off, that's cool. But we're too sick to work today, too. And like suddenly everybody bails out on this. You guys, we've been through this pandemic. I feel like that was a good training ground for behavior. You're only as strong as your weakest link. And so in this case, this new virus spreading, and keep in mind on the conspiracy end of things, where in the world is Dr. Fauci? He's an international crimes court. Yeah, no. Him and Bill Gates. Yeah, no, it's fine. Shh. Anyway, so these people, while we're having issues and, accountability with some major pharmaceutical stuff going on and ethical things going on with medical malpractice and misinformation in those spaces. Oops. While that goes over there, shh, 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 shh. While that goes over there, shh, 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 shh. Well, that goes over there and we don't talk about it. Where is she, by the way? Where is she? Where is she? Where is she? Who is she? Google that. Anyway, good morning. Good morning, Monica. Good morning, Trax. Good morning, Pepper. If whether or not, we want to subscribe to additional synthetic, man-made, biological warfare conspiracies of a virus that can, with nanotechnology, just adjust at will or just completely destroy an immune system. It's just amazing. Regardless of going down that tuberculosis wormhole, we're not going to go there. We're not going to do that. That it really does, what it really does, really, the word real, what it really does is it cuts off and funnels our economic space. And we're really going to be struggling soon if we're not careful. So we just need to be careful. So, good morning for those of you sharing in the chat room. There's so many fun chats going on. I really do appreciate it. Thank you. And thank you for joining me. And again, I do hope to make this every Wednesday afternoon. I do work 2 jobs, Monday through Friday. I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a student, and I'm powdered toast man. I'm not powdered toast man. But I do feel like being able to have a podcast, being able to have this opportunity to work with Odyssey Radio and other amazing people in the field of strange, fringe, odd, cool, truth, radio, of entertainment. I've never been one to be quiet. And I have always felt a great power in my voice. And when individuals come to me, working through social services, working through mental health, working through military, working through veterans, law enforcement, working through frontline type situations, but also as a mother working in holistics, like being someone who gravitate towards spirituality and science and growth and love and healing. I mean, ultimately, that I've been really sad to see news go to the wayside in a real way. And I hate that. And when I look and evaluate myself and say, what can I do to make things better? What can I do to change the current? I love interacting with people. And so that is just going to be something that I always do. It is my curse. I know that my job, some of my contracts wish I would keep my mouth shut, but I can't. And if I do, I lose myself. And I'm not doing that, especially in these crazy times. So thank you for joining me. And I hope that you will every Wednesday at 10:10, unless otherwise posted. But do watch, as it will go live on Odyssey at whatever time slot they're going to be putting me in. I ain't sure because I'm new. Okay? I've asked them. They told me that they're going to tell me, and they haven't told me what they're going to tell me yet. So I'm still waiting. So, and Brad in the chat room says, I always feel like I have to add and expand political platforms because stuff just, what was political isn't political. What once was is, and where. And I know for me, I don't know how many of you else out there feel this way. Sometimes I feel like it's too much, that it's overwhelming, that it's negative, that it's I don't want to go there because it makes me feel like shit. Like just looking at the headlines makes you want to gag. But the deal is, you know what I'm saying? You can't avoid it. It's like anxiety. It's like mental health. It's like anything else in your life. It's like mold in your fridge. You can't just not look at it and go, oh, I don't think that there is mold there. I didn't see it today. It's still growing. Things grow like a virus. Oh, look at me dropping things. Things grow and things expand. And God dang it, if you don't take attention to it, you'll pay in pain, as we say in hypnosis. Pay attention or pay in pain. And that's true. You must be aware. So awareness is what we're doing with the show. No Man's Land, the idea that, I'm a woman raised by a man, by my single parent dad, right? Later a stepmom. But in my domestic abuse situations, my mom was my villain. That puts me in a unique situation to advocate in a unique way. And so now with my master's in forensic psych and undergrad specialty in like law enforcement and linguistics, I work with crisis de-escalation and working with interviewing and assessment and now recently treatment for sex offenders and violent criminals. And I really do enjoy my work and I love it. I feel like it is an opportunity for me to continue research and advocate for people who don't always have a voice, but who grossly affect us and who are a part of our community and deviance and exile. And this kind of space is a deep level of psychology that, like cyber psychology, has a lot to what we do. And being a mom of boys, seeing how that plays into it, being a woman in a man's world. I don't think it is a man's world so much anymore. It's a they world. It's a weird world. It's a strange world. And I want to be able to keep in touch with people. And I want to be able to keep in touch with people on a platform that I can not control because I'm a control freak, but that I can control. So thank you for joining me in that endeavor. I wanted to kind of go through the headlines with you guys. Someone had asked me what I thought about the Canadian headline, and that's kind of vague. So, Anthony, if you want to expand on that on Instagram, let me know what you think specifically, what you're talking about, and I will be glad to give you my thoughts and opinions. Something that kind of came under the whispers of the radar today that I'm going to be interested to see how it pans out is that apparently, apparently, there was an order made to China this morning. A large order of flags, English flags, with the Queen's birth date and death date, and the year being 2022. There's been whispers of a death. There's been rumors of a death. So I'm interested to see if that plays out or if that's just a rumor. That could be a huge thing to affect the world platform right now. Of course, everything is largely affecting everything. The waters are crazy, so any additional ripples really do just add bleh. Looking at the chat room, raised by my mom, but my dad is my villain. Ooh, isn't that interesting? We always have a villain in our life, and it's not always even our parents. It could be the bully at school. It could be a work colleague. Mary says, this is so true, Sarah. Having a mom you cannot trust puts you in an odd place as a woman. Well, oftentimes I think, especially working with sex offenders who are predominantly men, let's face that, is the system the way that it is, but also behavior the way that it is, biology the way that it is. But it's a delicate world out there with toxic masculinity. But we have feminine toxicity. Whoa, what? One of my, mentors, Jordan Peterson out of Canada, he's a man working in has been a largely female, space, working in and around like child development and stuff in this nature. Psychologists and doctor levels, are usually men. But like the nurturing, the one-on-one bonding, the development and understanding of the dynamic of the family. It's usually women who have kept a lot of this research and done this. I think of like Margaret Singer and immediately people and start going into eugenics and my brain just explodes in weird places. But women are usually the culprits behind like slut shaming. Women are usually the ones who instigate a domestic dispute. And I know that that is not a popular opinion or thing to say because it's not nice. And no one wants to hear unnice things. When the police show up, they usually arrest the man. When a divorce happens, the female usually gets the child. You have all of these experiences, and your parent is going to have a huge influence on how that is filtered. So Monica says, man, I've got to drive. I love listening, but can't chat. We appreciate you joining us, Monica, whether you're driving or not, and do be safe. Marx and Weber writings are spot on with capitalism and war, says Pepper. Could talk about this for days. Brad says, weirdos give decent guys like me a bad name. Well, a bad apple ruins the bunch for everyone, and that's for women as well. Um, there was just recently a discussion had about sex work and how usually the people who are so against sex work are married women, and they're really worried about, what is going to happen to their structure of a family because their values, when tainted or tested by chaos on the outside, it really, can affect the cow, the price of the cow. Why buy the milk if you can get the cow for free? This is breaking news. Magnitude earthquake hits near Japan's Fukushima. A 7.3 tsunami advisory has been issued. The quake shaking buildings, disrupting power lines, and in many parts of Tokyo, striking at 11:36 p.m. their local time in Japan. The intensity was estimated at an upper 6, but does end up being the Shindo scale of the 7.3. Mm. And of course, the very important thing that we're all thinking, Tokyo Electric Power Company says it's checking in for any irregularities in its facilities, including the Daiichi and Dainai nuclear power plants in Fukushima, while East Japan Railway Company says some public transportation services have already been halted. Yes, it is still leaking, has been leaking, will be leaking, radioactive, radioactive. And then, of course, this morning, I'm not sure if you guys have checked the news because we were on that topic of like, I hate the news. It makes me feel like shit. That as far as the Ukraine Russia war goes, you go back and forth. There were some bombings of a bread line of a school. But do we say that these things are real? Do we say that, oh, no, no. There was some Ukrainian translation of Russian soldiers being told that if they retreat, if they return, that they're immediately executed. And so they can't do that. So they're just kind of walking around aimlessly, not necessarily in agreement with or in accordance with what Putin has asked them to do. So there's kind of this like loss of design and efficiency with some of those things. Again, the accuracy is difficult to completely say for sure. But Zelensky this morning invoked the Pearl Harbor plea to Congress and says that Russia has turned to the Ukrainian sky into a source of death. And the reason that that was also unique is because there were some pictures of, and I'm forgetting, gosh dang it, my brain. I'm sorry, I have not had enough coffee and I didn't write it down. Shame on me, shame on me. If you Google this, of course, who knows? They may have already taken it out of the news. That's how the news is these days. There are some pictures coming out of, is it France? Parts of Europe, major parts of Europe. So that's what I'll say. Major parts of Europe where the sky is red. The sky is like this very harsh red orange this morning, very, very dark, crazy. And that people were like, oh, yeah, no, this is just from, the tsunamis and the winds and the climate stuff going on in Saudi Arabia. It's no big deal. It's just the fires. It's just the fires. And I mean, being someone who lives in Minnesota, we, had the big fires last year. And often if you've experienced fires, you'll have the sunrise and, all the smoke and you can smell it, you can taste it, you can see it, and it's there. But the turning to the skies, death turning to the skies comment, not just about no-fly zones, because you guys, of course, and we shared this a little bit on Astrology and Alchemy last night on some of our predictions for what to expect this week in politics with help from astrology, that if people fly over, if you're going from Poland to Ukraine, if you're delivering these old Russian planes anyway, if you're delivering tools to aid and then something gets shot down, that enacts Article 5 within NATO, I believe. I'm not an expert. But from what I understand, then is going to really push us into a situation of a possible World War III that everyone is kind of slightly tiptoeing around. We're trying to just, as we do, think about parenting. Think about the Stanford prison experiment. You push boundaries. Man, you don't want to have a blow up in a relationship. Maybe you're poking the bear. You don't really want to have like the breakup, but you want to have an argument. You want to be able to come to terms because things aren't right. Things aren't good. And they're that way in a lot of places. And so people feeling this need to regulate change, have homeostasis, push, change, that requires a little conflict. That requires stomping in the puddle to get a reaction to initiate the change that's needed. But that doesn't mean that you want complete destruction. And that is where we are at. We are stretching the rubber band. We are moving and changing. But what exactly are we prepared and allowed to move? And that, of course, is where I look to astrology. Pluto is shifting. These are times that 1776 mirrors what is happening. Some major world wars, the fall of the Great Republic, men sitting on hills with fiddles while things go into flames. These are the times. And so, what can we see mirroring? Money. What can we see changing? Economic structure, things dropping out of the sky, control of information, the editing of the Bible, sacred magic, all sorts of things. As Pepper shared, a red sky in the morning is caution. That's what the sailors say. Yes, red in the morning is a sailor's warning. Red at night is a sailor's delight. Of course, that's just in reference to, I believe, the carbon in the atmosphere. We've had a lot of red mornings lately. That's a big deal. Pepper also says camming sex work services are online as well, so there's no need for flesh to flesh sex work. Speaking of that, cyber psychology, cyber sex, pornography, that really changes how people bond. It changes your dopamine structure. It changes your expectations, how you communicate. I mean, your erogenous zones are still there, but they're not being tested or touched as much in an interaction of orgasm. And some of my other mentors, I would say, in the field were really talking and working on how this grossly affects people and that they should be more aware. Like if you are using porn, that's fine, but it can be just as helpful as it can be harmful. How often are people using it to learn like tantra and, edging with their partner? They're not. They're not. They're sneaking it in the bathroom and it's breaking up marriages because people aren't communicating about it because it's taboo, because there's a bond issue. Do you know that person? Are you being intimate with that person, or are you just using that? And if you're using it, then you're using something for sex, and that is kind of taboo too. So there's all sorts of layers to why that is adjusting things. But of course, some of the changes, I don't know if you guys knew this, some of those executive orders that our President Biden has been putting into place, and some of the changes in our money structure, especially with like digital and cryptocurrencies and online money. Just recently, Saudi Arabia was saying, you know what, I don't think we're gonna maybe support the world currency being the dollar. Maybe that does need to change, and that would be really effing scary. If you've not seen like Endgame with Alex Jones, which was a crazy conspiracy theory in 2008, it's now kind of like a 1984 of our time, which is sick and disgusting and scary, but by all means, you can start there if you want. What's going to happen, do you think? Zelensky pleaded to the United States Congress, please, please help us. Please help us. This no-fly zone is killing us, and Russia is turning to the sky. That is distracting. It's going to be a crazy week. Tomorrow is St. Patrick's Day, and then Friday is a full moon. Man, I don't expect it to get any calmer. I don't. I really don't. I really don't. I don't. So, yes, Mary, Carson, those of you joining us in the chat room, yeah. And let me know what you think. Man, there's discussion. Someone said, what do you think about daylight savings time becoming permanent? No. Yes, no. Why don't we just go back to the original 13 phases, like the shell of a turtle and indigenous tribes everywhere, where you just go with the 26 to 28 cycle day of the moon and just use the moon? Well, we should ask the men in history. We should ask ourselves why that we created this and wrote it down and did all the things, and the fact that how many people can go outside and tell the time with the nicks on their finger or the shadows on the wall. Not very many people know even the present time. And that's a scripture in Luke in the Bible. And that says a lot about frantic awareness. Yuck. The using of cyber psychology and abusing of cyber psychology, and not in a good way. The lack of awareness. People say that they're woke. They're not. It's a laughable concept. Okay, I'm looking at somebody asked if who is this? John J. John JJ. Is that your real name, John JJ? Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. I don't know. John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt. That's what I think of. John JJ says, how do you feel about the case in Wisconsin about the crazy woman up your area? Are you going to be working that? Okay, so I'm assuming, and I know, this is an assumption, but I know. Not just because I'm a psychic witch, but because this is a really crazy case that was in the news headlines just recently about a woman who she was in Wisconsin, and she and her boyfriend. Now, they were both married, I believe. He was much younger. She was older and had a child, married with a kid, like a 6 month or 9 month old, like a baby. That's why I was immediately like, wow, she looks great for having just had a child. Um, she and this younger man were off, having an affair with each other. And they were into some pretty crazy stuff. And they really were pushing stuff to the limit. And I guess they decided to bring chains into the bedroom, and she started choking him with a chain, and he started turning purple, and she said that she just went crazy and she lost it. And so she choked him to death, and then earmuffs if it's too graphic. Then she cut him into pieces, and then she played with some of the body parts to see if it was different or not, being alive or dead. Use your imagination. And then she put some of his legs in a crock pot in the back seat of her car. And then she put his head and his penis in a bag in a bucket. And then she put a few other pieces around the house. And she told the police at the time she was likely high on meth. They were using meth frequently together. Lucky it wasn't fentanyl. People are flopping over. And she said, yeah, you're going to have fun finding all those pieces. And she did that. And it's kind of a sad thing. And she recently has asked for a mental health competency, her and her lawyer. Will she get it? Necrophilia is a thing that is rare. It is. But when you're high on meth, there's things you will do that are pretty fucking crazy. There it was. No, I'm not working that case. I don't work in Wisconsin. Not unless somebody runs over the state line, in which case I'm not the one chasing them. Call somebody in uniform to do that. So no, but I would love to. I would love to be someone who did a peer review on it. I might even would love to do a review on that. And they're crazy out there, people. They're crazy. The news headlines in the forensic realm is crazy. So yes, John JJ. And again, let me know if that's the case you're talking about. A lot of alligators, a lot of crocodiles in the news. That's not necessarily something I care so much about talking about. You guys, something. How do you feel about the lack of coverage? Anybody? Like with the war, I would love for you to share in the chat room. Where are you getting your news? Where and from whom and at what resource are you going to even get the headlines? Are you? Huh? Because, and it's so weird to even mention Russell Brand. I used to think he was the biggest weird wad ever, especially after not saving Sarah Silverman. That's the other movie that I think is funny, but oh, you know the one where he plays the ridiculous. I can't remember. He plays a ridiculous boyfriend of the one girl. You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. Russell Brand is weird. He's absolutely strange. Married to Katy Perry once? What? But whatever. Every person is allowed to recover, and indeed he has. His book on addiction came into my life. I read it. It was a very good piece, very well written. And then, of course, he moves into politics, where I'm often known to be marching around. And then he does a podcast, Under the Skin. It's very good, interviewing some really amazing people. He's a good interviewer in that he listens. I think that both a lot of the big time podcasters now, if you're listening, it's the ability to listen to someone. And I do hope to interview and have some guests here on the show on No Man's Land that I would love to interview and just be sharing with the world. Forgetting Sarah Marshall. Thank you for getting Sarah Marshall. And in that's kind of how I see Russell Brand, by the way, Russell. That's how I see you. And that's really, I don't think, how he is. He's living in the UK where my in-laws live, and he's over there doing lectures, doing spiritual integration workshops. He's trying to teach people how to be open-minded. And I've sent some of my own clients his way because he's a man that can speak in a unique way that's funny with British humor. If you're someone who grew up with Monty Python like I did, or Whose Line Is It Anyway, or Kids in the Hall, you might have a dry sense of humor. And sometimes that's the only way you can cope with some of the redonkulousness in the news. And he has an interesting balance. So here in America, if we're in America, I know that like the QAnon and the Q, put that in a parentheses. That's crazy. I mean, it's not that it's crazy. It is real. It is a thing. But put that in parentheses for a second. And do know that PSYOPs is a real thing. American propaganda and the marketing, these are real. You can get a college degree in it. The ownership of our media is also real. And it is theater. It is. There is a script. Hi, and welcome to Fox News. There is a teleprompter. There is. And the news shifts from region to region. Maybe it should, maybe it shouldn't. People like Mr. Rogers and Jordan Peterson, they go and sit in front of, members of their own government to try and change rules that they don't feel like are appropriate. And if people that we know and hold up as a role model, someone with integrity, is going there to try and fight for a conflict or to meet a resistance, we have an idea that there might be currents going in the wrong way. And we know there are. Let's not be stupid. Let's not be stupid. So Russell Brand will often talk about things in his shorts on YouTube. You can follow his shorts there. And I do. We'll sit and have my coffee and go, holy cow. He's talking about some really interesting things. And sometimes I find myself kind of slapping my own face because it's exciting that people I would consider that high up on the mountain, mind you, the mountain doesn't really exist, but these individuals who have really big platforms, I would think that like he would know about the Illuminati, like probably went to a Dark Horse Katy Perry party of his own and then like knows a lot of shit, knows a lot of people, and probably has more inside information than the rest of us. But yet there was an authentic surprise in a recent interview. He was talking with someone and ID 2020 came up in conversation. If you're not familiar with ID 2020, write that down, Google that, go there. So this started happening. So I really love iritology, the study of the eyes to understand human biology and anatomy. You can see if someone has liver damage, jaundice, or other things in their eyes. And it's also in forensic mortuary science, all my dead body books. You can learn a lot about the body by looking at it. Duh, right? That's objective science. What? I know. And knowing that you can just look at the body and see things. I also love phrenology. I also love criminal profiling and Lombroso and being able to look at someone's ears and see if they've had cauliflower ear. Maybe they were a wrestler, telling by their body. This is the gypsy way. This is the biological trauma response of feeling safe. This is the military trained observation. This is be aware, right? All these things. Maybe everyone does it. Maybe no one does. Your eyes, your face, your structure is extremely important to your identity and who you are. Your reflection, mirror neurons. I remember going into psychology, neuropsychology, probably right around 2008, and really learning about mirror neurons and being like, what? Because if someone watches a lot of something, if someone is exposed to something, they're more likely to do it. And if someone is wincing at the idea of suicide, if they can't possibly even think about it or talk about it in an interrogation or a situation of crisis, it kind of tells you where their conscious or unconscious mind is at. Being able to understand this and kind of going into these realms, and then knowing that like China and ethical uses of this information, the NIH, are heavily involved, that there's patents on some of these things. Awareness. the use of mushrooms and schizophrenia. Is schizophrenia a mental illness? Or, as someone who also works in the paranormal, are they hearing voices? I often have said, I know, right, on record that the spirits are telling me, man, people could lock me up if under the right conditions. Luckily, I'm educated, aware, and competent. I know what those conditions are, and I feel comfortable, proud, and confident enough to speak safely in that space. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 10 years ago, maybe I didn't. Maybe I wouldn't have. I would have to have been careful what I was saying because maybe I wasn't quite sure what I should say. When you know, you can speak loudly. I'm not crazy completely. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But I I know that not all schizophrenics are crazy. I know that mental illness doesn't mean you're violent. There's very clear differentiations. And where I'm going with this is Russell was having this show talking about ID 2020. I was like, well, what's that? And they start talking about what this is. The use of facial recognition, the use of eye scans. I mean, we've seen it in all sci-fi movies. Man, they see it in pulling their eye out and getting into the back room at the Da Vinci. Like it's gone beyond fingerprinting at the county sheriff's office. It's being able to have better identity, better methods of tracking who you are, because that's security. And the intentions might start off good, like an atom bomb, but like everything, there's an equal and opposite reaction that one must be aware of that will be monetized and sold for defense and war. America. And that's our way. And we do that. And Pepper says Russell talks way too fast for me. My husband says the same thing. He can't listen to his structure. It's too quick. And I get that too. My brain, I have like 22 tabs open, I would say, at all times. And so his speed and pace, I appreciate it because I'll be like, what? Where? And it allows me to keep focus because there's not enough time to be distracted. But that's a preference. Anyway, this idea that ID 2020 has been heavily involved in nanotechnology, vaccine awareness, tracking missing children, mental illness, people on Jarvis, people on civil commitment. There's all sorts of things. And ID 2020 is real. You can buy stock in it and should and have. When you can't beat them, join them. And when you join them, that's when you change your lead and hopefully still have kept your integrity. So herein lies the problem. We have ID 2020. You have Newmark. Look that up if you're interested. And these things that we see, man, they're painting out at the Olympics. You are seeing things being put in an Oculus, cyber psychology, detachment, bonding. All of these things are changing pretty dramatically. Trust, resource, information, instant gratification, attention span, all of these things are changing. And all of these things are grossly affected by the cyber realm. So controlling it and controlling you on it, through it, about it, with it, is extremely, extremely important. And it's where we're at. It's really where we're at. And it makes me nervous. It makes me a little nervous. Okay, sorry, I avoided the chat there. Mary, Pepper, thank you, you guys chatting and sharing your thoughts on schizophrenia. Ooh, rumors that Trump was going to go on Rogan. Did I hear? I did hear. I shared that last night on the Astrology and Alchemy show. That's every Tuesday at 9. Also on Odyssey Radio if you're interested in learning more about astrology and science and spirituality. That would be a show. Man, I know people that can't stand Joe Rogan. They just want him to just keel over. But here's the deal. He kind of acts as a middleman. He does act as the dumb chimp. He interviews a variety, a diverse group of people. The shows are long enough that you're committing to like maybe the shorts or the 3 hour or 1 hour. And they're streaming. They're good. They're funny. Really, really cool. If you're not a huge Joe Rogan fan, you don't have to be a Joe Rogan fan to enjoy the podcast. And recently, he's had some really relevant political discussions, kind of like the Russell Brand show. And those are two podcasts that, I mean, the Daily Wire is heavily conservative. And I don't go one way or the other. I try not to. I try to be middle of the road, middle of the ground, that no man's land. I don't play red or blue. I don't play teams. I don't. But do I think that he would go on the show? Do I think Trump would go on Joe Rogan and do that and try and break the internet? Yeah. Do I think it'll happen? Yeah. Do I think it'll happen in the next month? It's going to be right around mid-elections. Yeah. That's a real thing. Okay, guys, we have 5 more minutes here. So put in the chat room anything remaining. Come on, Sarah, learn to speak. Anything remaining that you would like to talk about today for No Man's Land. And don't forget to join us on social media, share with your friends, join us every Wednesday. And then also I'll be popping in for shorts, breaking news and things like that. Deadlines, taxes. Man, we don't want to talk about taxes. Kanye and Kim, not terribly interested. That's not really a no man's land. That's kind of a weird space, though I will say it's relevant to bipolar disorder, manic spaces of domestic abuse, issues with why things should be kept private, why and how that can be really crazy, and those poor children involved, right? That's all I'm going to say about that. Yeah, Joe Biden. I had shared that last night as well, confusing Kamala with his wife. And I know a lot of times there's, raking Joe Biden through the coals of his dementia, and it's elderly abuse at this point, and he clearly does have some cognitive decline, and I don't feel comfortable with him being my president. I will say that. So regardless and that's just watching him perform and speak and bumble around. It's very nerve-wracking, not to mention his behavior around children, just as he's distracted. And his son, and compromised, and just so many things that make me nervous. But recently was on the podium and asked about, because Kamala has been struggling with illness, not to mention Havana syndrome. That's a whole nother discussion. And saying like, how's Havana? How's Kamala? And he said, oh, the first lady's husband. And people are like, that's you. And he's like, and she's fine too. Like, he had a moment of confusion, but actually his comedic response was pretty good. So I think that that is a good thing that I'll take from that. But hey, it was like in the afternoon. And so as far as sundowners and things like that go, I truly do believe that there's a major decline there, and that was maybe a good moment. So I don't know why that was in the news, and because the news is trash. That's why. Yes, Elon Musk did rival Putin to a one-on-one, hand-to-hand combat for the Ukraine. That is real, but it's also not like real. Like, that's not going to happen. This is not like celebrity deathmatch, even though I know I've joked many times about that. That's probably how we should handle things now, because it's a joke anyway. Hey, maybe we're there. Maybe I created this matrix in reality, and this is the world we live in. Speaking of, Troublesome 93 in the chat room says, how is that astral realm been with everyone? The great ascension, the great apocalypse, the revelations, the coming. The great coming. Well, we have been having mysteriously long, 5-mile long UFOs showing up on Google Maps. Also, huge, more than 120 validated sightings over Ireland. Mysterious angelic presence captured floating above UK towns. And if you are looking, I mean, just you don't even have to go to MUFON. You can go to just headlines of ufology or Dr. Greer and the contact of the fifth kind. The CIA, government, Canadian government's just been yapping all about their aliens. And it really goes under the radar because war and pandemic, and those two are a little bit more important, slightly. I don't know, maybe. Aliens, who cares? We've all seen Men in Black. People don't seem to be quite startled in any way, shape, or form. Yeah. But the ascension is real, the pulling apart, the yanking, the change. I feel like it's a collective consciousness. It's like when someone steps on an anthill and you see the ants buzzing. This fight or flight response, this arousal response, this caution in the air, this thickness, this ominous, this change, this system breaking, this collapse. It is a cycle. It is dependable in that way. And are we on it? Are we in it? Yes, we are. And do we feel that change and that shaking of competency? Yes. And um, other countries don't think we're a strong, competent country anymore, and we're not. And so that's, you know, we did that. America was the great last experiment of democracy, and it kind of failed a little bit, a lot of it. And is it wrong to hope that aliens will take out Putin? Yes. We never want to wish on anyone's demise, and I don't know Putin personally. I really don't. But what's interesting is that right now there's a weird play in America's Sweetheart with people watching Tommy Lee and Pamela Anderson on Netflix, and like that whole like victimization of a sex tape going online and things being released in a weird way. You know that Pamela Anderson and Putin are close. They know each other. They've met. When you see like individuals who have known these individuals, or you see conversations about like how is this individual really, or thinking that maybe someone might be mentally ill, which if that is the case, Biden, Putin, or any of these world leaders, the Queen, if they're mentally ill, then they're vulnerable adults. And if they're vulnerable adults, our legal system, which is supposed to in some ways mirror our ethics and morals, right, of the group, of the majority, it says that those people need our help. And so, well, oh, that's my call, guys. I got to head out. And so without further ado, I'm going to see you next Wednesday. That's work calling. Until then.